Hey, Road Warriors and Care Crew. Welcome to the Care in Motion podcast, the new home for the home health clinician. We're going to talk through stories and tips around safety, efficiency, clinical issues, and career pathways, all from the perspective of a few road warriors just like yourself to provide their insight. Our goal here is that you'll find this weekly podcast helpful, relatable, and interesting, but most importantly, wildly entertaining during your daily drive. And today's topic is an exciting one. We mentioned it on last week's, where we wanted to talk about some of the curveballs, of which there are many. And actually, Dan, recently I saw that you probably were dealt a pretty significant curveball with a car crash. So obviously that probably upset your day. What happened? I assume you're safe.
It was after, yeah, thank you. No, I'm good. It was after patient care. And yeah, I was turning into a plaza and there was no light there. So I had to wait for people to, to wave me through because there was a long line of cars. And I was waved through and I turned left and someone went around that guy and boom, just T-boned me and rattled me, man. Cause I mean, I got hit hard and thankfully after, I mean, it was considered, his fault. And so I'm going through that whole deal right now, but long and the short of it is, so we've been just figuring out vehicles for the past bit, but the most important thing is that we're all okay, and it's just a car. It had 201,000 miles on it, though, you guys. I mean, this is like my blood, sweat, and tears, like love. Like I love driving cars forever, but it's life, and everyone's okay, so that's good.
So like 10, 20-second diversion. I have not gotten into a car crash in probably like not even a fender bender for 25 years. And I was with my 16-year-old a couple months ago and ended up, the guy in front of me brake checked me because he was mad at me for something. And I hit his car, had to get a new bumper, and I had a rental car and I put the rental car in a ditch. And so now I've got a $12,000 bill from Progressive for basically causing all this damage to this rental car that I think they're going to cover. But anyway, so two car crashes in like 2 weeks, and my wife is like, "You can drive me more."
I'm sorry to hear that. That is no fun.
Anyway, but so what happened? So is that on the job?
No, it was right after. It was right after work, and just one of those things. Yeah, same with me. Like I haven't been in a car crash. I mean, I was in a car crash like 20 years ago, like a bad one, head-on collision on the highway. Try to figure that one out. Coming at me, pow. But it's been a long time, and it wasn't on the job. The craziest thing is I've been hit 3 times this year. Once in Home Depot parking lot, once in the gas station, and then once so I'm like, this car literally looks like hell driving through the city. And my patients, I roll up to their house with it because it was still drivable until it just got taken away from my house 2 days yesterday. It was still drivable, so I show up at their house and they look out their windows like, oh my gosh, this poor sap. Like, who is this guy about to come into our house? Should we let him in? He don't look very, very good. So
I've actually had it happen during the middle of my day. So I had somebody pull out in the middle and they were pulling out of a gas station and I was on the straight and they obviously didn't see me and they came across 2 lanes and they T-boned on the side. But I think, long story short here, as we're going through patient care, right? For me, I think during those situations, the first thing, like Dan, you said you were rattled, right? I mean, at the end of the day, I think the first thing is to get your bearings, do what you need to do for your car, yourself, and then after that, then you take care of your patients. And I think that's about being selfish, right? I mean, we are the clinician, and yeah, we do have a risk that's involving driving around, bringing the therapy to you. And I think when we come back to that, the first thing is to take care of yourself. And then after that, call the patient as soon as possible when everything is safe, right? And my recommendation would be just cut your day. Cut your day there, go home, reset, and try to make up from there. Call your office, whatever you need to do, whatever protocols are. But I think, long story short, I mean, it's probably, unless it's something very minor where they tap your bumper or
Yeah.
something like crazy like that, or a flat tire. Like I work in a city where they can quickly fix the flat tire, and I can probably, I might have to skip one patient, but I can make up, the time after that. So
Yeah.
I
So
think the biggest thing is just making sure you're safe.
I've got a question. Since it happened in the middle of your day, did your work cover any part of that? Is it workman's comp? Is it going through? It doesn't matter that it happened while you're on the job in the middle of your day.
I'll be a little honest here. I didn't say anything. I just kept going about my day because the car was drivable and I went. And the other thing is, like Dan Haggerty, you just mentioned, I had a rental car. So my car at the time, I could get a rental car from the dealership. So I was just still going about my day. But
Now, if you were hurt, though, would that
yes,
fall
Yeah.
under workman's comp? Then
I,
you would definitely report it, right?
I believe it would fall under workman's comp, but you also have your own insurances and stuff too to cover things as well. So,
So
which
Well,
is
I
just gonna
lost.
say,
Oh,
yeah, go ahead, Dan. Sorry.
no. Go.
I was just going to say, I mean, it's, the segue to what we were going to talk about today, just in terms of like, okay, this is the classic curveball. And, so what do you do? So Brendan, you said, obviously end your day, but what does this look like? Because there's all kinds of different curveballs that completely obviously messes with your schedule. If it happens at the beginning of the day, you might have, 6 different patients that you've got to kind of reschedule. So what does this look like?
I think it depends on your protocols and the way things are set up. I mean, I know for myself, I could reach out to my scheduler and they'd probably reach out to the patients for me and they would take care of the rest of the business side of things, right? And be like, hey, on something unexpected happened, he needs to kind of take the day off. He'll be in touch with you when he can, kind of thing. But I think the other thing is, like you said, it depends on severity of things, right? If it's a flat tire, if it's something simple that can be fixed in a timely fashion, or if it's not really anything, then it's a matter of regrouping yourself and then seeing where you're at in your day, right? Am I behind too far? Does it make sense just to skip one patient and try to see them a different day and move on to the next one? Does it make sense to try to put somebody in that I'm right nearby? If I have those optional people that I know that they're always home, those always home people that say call me whenever, you have to kind of really see what makes the most sense at that time, and you're just kind of going by the seat of your pants, which is a little bit unnerving, but I think all of us have probably experienced it at some point in time. And the more you do it, I think the more comfortable you feel. It's never a perfect scenario, I don't think, but at the end of the day, I think we get better outcomes just by experiencing it.
And I
And I,
don't think patients are ever upset, right, when you're calling or canceling for a reason where, hey, I was in a car accident, right? They're not going to be, oh, well, you should have been here. They're okay with it. And you first and foremost have to take care of yourself, right? You regroup, assess your situation, like Brendan was saying, and figure out what's going to work best for you in the rest of your day. Because there's car accident curveballs, but there's also patient curveballs, right? Where you're calling 911 or something, and that can be a big curveball into your day with patient care. And you're now 30 minutes or 45 minutes behind because you got stuck behind the ambulance because you didn't move your car in time. But those type of curveballs also reassessing and saying, okay, do I just skip that next patient? Am I canceling them? Am I just going to inform every next patient I have that I'm running 30 minutes behind? So I don't know if you guys
so
have run into that type of situation before, but
I mean, I'm going to say that curveballs for me, and I don't know. I'm going to say that we all have curveballs. I feel like, man, I get curveballs every day, like every day. I'm going to give you. So today, was one of those days where I know you've all had these days. You can't prepare for these days. It's like it's like an explosion of everything that could possibly go wrong. So I go to see my 9 o'clock, and while I'm with my 9 o'clock, my 10 o'clock cancels for valid reasons. Okay, so I already know I'm going to have to scramble. This is stuff I swear it has happened every day for a long time for me. So I get into my car after my 9 o'clock patient. I'm like, Pat, my scheduler. I love this woman. I'm like, Pat, I need an eval, like stat, because my 11 o'clock can't move, so I'm hanging out in a parking lot. I call 2 evals, None of them panned out. I called 2 routine visits. No one panned out. So you know what I'm doing? I'm sitting in my car, scrolling on social media and looking at how my recent post is doing for an hour when I would rather be working. So then after my 11 o'clock, I get more curveballs. At the end of the day, I have seen 3 patients, 3 units. So I'm already thinking, what do I have to do? I'm going to have to make up this time. But I ended up getting a little bit later than typical because I spent so much time calling and begging patients. We've all had days like this, and it's hard to recover because then you say to yourself, I don't want to work harder tomorrow. I came to work hard, ready to work hard today. It didn't pan out, not for my own reasons. It was because the day just blew up. So these are things that, I mean, I think they're worth long conversations because they happen. And fortunately, they don't happen all that often where it's like everything just blows up. But by the end of the week, if I'm under, I'm going to have a little bit of a talk with my boss and say, listen, and this is usually what we do is on our timesheet, or we'll have a conversation. All of these things happened on these days. Like I tried really hard to recover. These are the steps I took to recover. I called the schedulers. I begged for patience. And so I'm one under. What are you going to do? Fire me? No, you know what I mean? Like what? Honestly and truly, if you have a good working relationship with your boss and they know how hard of a worker you are and stuff like this happens, then they should be absolutely like, listen, stuff happens. I know you tried. I know you did the best you could. I know you tried to recover. You didn't. Stuff happens. You know?
Do you get evaluated on productivity like on a weekly basis, or are they looking at it on a monthly, or like
so like for my company, we have an annual review every year. They have all the stats of every single week of productivity. But let's just say I was someone that was like under routinely or something. Would I get talked to every week? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those things where they take it super seriously. And but yeah, they know all the stats at the end of every year, and they'll say like, hey, you reached productivity 99% of the time, et cetera. So, but there was one time, I mean, I don't want to here, you guys can talk and then I'll hold my thought for another.
I would just say the opposite of this because you both are salary, right? So you have to meet your certain number and you're getting paid whether you meet that number or not. So you're getting looked at, are you meeting this number? Are you doing everything you can to meet that number, right?
Right.
I am paid per visit. So if I'm not meeting my productivity, which is 28 points a week, they don't care. They don't care if I'm at 25 points because it doesn't matter. They're not paying me for 28 points. I'm only getting paid for what I do. So when I have these cancellations or a day like you where I only saw 3 visits, I'm screwed, right? I only have the choice of saying, okay, now I do need to work a longer day because I do need to make up for it because otherwise I'm not getting paid. So what do I do? Do I use PTO to fill in my gaps of the cancellations? Or do I say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and see if I can work, like fit in 2 extra people during my day. And now I'm just working a longer day, but now there goes some time with my family, right? I'm getting home later or I'm documenting later because I'm having to do 8 points instead of 5.5 points in one day.
But I think to both of you guys, right? I think sometimes, like Dan, I've experienced that entirely before too, right? And I think sometimes it's just like, life is always moving so fast for us in home health. I feel like it's a very fast moving system. Sometimes when we have those days, I mean, you just have to accept it, right? Do something for yourself. You know what I mean? Like, take a coffee break, go and eat your lunch early. Take time to actually eat your lunch somewhere instead of driving in the car eating or doing what you know what I mean. Like, and I think that's good for mental health, but also just for your own well being. I think as clinicians, we're so productivity driven, as we're all just speaking about productivity, that sometimes just to take that little bit of a break back, it means a lot. Or maybe you had, Lisa, you had something to do later on before you picked up the kids. Maybe you can put that in now. You know what I mean? And then see maybe you can switch somebody to a later time. Not that it's always going to work out that way, but I mean, there are things that we can do, and I think that's the beauty of home health, and that's why we all get into it, right? Is the flexibility aspect. But I think you have to become very creative sometimes, and I think you have to be able to be a little bit, you know, I don't know, like give and take a little bit, right? When it comes down to it, because at the end of the day, and I think this goes back to something we talked about in a previous episode, like having clear communication with your patients, right, from the get-go, having them understand that I'm coming to you, like I'm doing everything in my power to get there on time, to meet our standardized appointment or the agreed upon time, and now we have to kind of take a step back. So, I'm just gonna say I wouldn't recommend it all the time, but I think there are moments in time when you need to take time for yourself, and maybe you do a coffee break, maybe you do something that you normally don't do, just for mental sakes, right? We talk about
Or
mental
you
health a
go
lot.
to or you go to Target and browse and end up spending like $150, and you just lost your patient, you lost your $100, and you spent $100. So it's like a double
Yeah.
whammy.
Hmm.
I
Don't
saw that
recommend
one
that.
that you posted.
But it happens.
Hmm.
Can't say I do that, Lisa. I'm not the one to do that, but
It's
Well,
Costco for me.
you've got kids. I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna go browse the kids section and check out what they have, and they need a new sweatshirt.
but I think to go along with talking about more curveballs, some other things that I don't have time necessarily. Like Dan, you have a set schedule, right? Planned out. I mean, I try to plan out my day the day before, minimally, if not the whole week before. And they're like, "Hey, I got an ortho. You need to see this today. Like they're getting home. I need you to see this." Well, I have my day planned, and I'm like, all right, well, yeah, I'll figure it out. But like, I don't know. Like, what do you guys do in that situation?
I
So
think I. Oh, go ahead.
go for it.
I would say I kind of triage how important that visit they're trying to add on to me. And I will usually only do it if it is an ortho. It's somebody that like needs to be seen that day, because you really don't want to be making the orthodox mad and losing those accounts if they're not being seen or there's an issue. And if it's going to work out for me. If for some reason it doesn't, I have no problem saying, look, my day is planned. I can't rearrange on these people. So you're going to have to find either someone else that can, or call in somebody. Like even today, I got a text at 12:10 p.m. saying, hey, can you go do an admission today? It's like, well, no, my day is already scheduled, so I can do it tomorrow. And that
Mhm.
was that. Either it's going to be done tomorrow or you're going to find somebody else to do it.
Mhm. Yeah, in my case, I work for a large company that, like, there are 5 of us that cover one town. Like, it's a good sized town. And so that works out nicely in the sense that, like, so I mean, we'll give our schedulers our availability a week beforehand and say, this is how many openings I have as of this moment. Obviously that can change at any second. But when they reach out last second about an ortho, I know that generally one of us is going to have some wiggle room or availability, but I don't feel the pressure that I used to feel when I worked for like a much smaller company, where it was like, I was it, man. Like, there's an ortho, like Dano's got to figure out a way how to fit this person in. So that's kind of one of the perks, I would say, of having like a lot of bodies. One of the perks.
But
But
Lisa, think
I mean,
about your like.
orthos usually they don't expect you same day. I mean, usually they got to be seen within a day, right? So you would know hopefully about it for tomorrow. But are you seeing a lot of like can you fit this in today, please, type of thing?
I mean, like, we have like the pre-book, like ortho pre-books of like, we'll know when knees and hips are coming, but there's always those outliers that like fall through the cracks, and they're like, holy smokes, we had a knee that is coming out now. You know what I mean? So there's always those little curveballs that we didn't really plan for.
I
Did you just
had
try to
that.
squeeze it in?
I had that
If you can?
exact
Someone's got it.
scenario. I had that exact scenario we're talking about, I think like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Patient was scheduled for their knee replacement. Usually our docs they'll do an overnight. They go home the next day and we're scheduled. They didn't spend the night. They went home same day, called in the morning saying, hey, we're home. We really need PT, because there's some sort of concern. You just had surgery. You went home same day. They're all sorts of things start going wrong. They have medication questions. They're in a lot of pain. They want PT out. So I get the call, hey, can you go see this ortho? They're calling the office. Can you go? And I had my day was scheduled, but I had time in the afternoon. I said, sure, I can go at 1:30. well, I call the patient and they're like, no, we really need someone to come this morning, like as soon as you can. So I went and looked through, I called one of my other patients and they're like, no, like we have an afternoon appointment. We can't see you in the afternoon. We need you to keep your appointment. So I called my first appointment of the day and I was like, hey, can I come later? They're super flexible. They're like, yeah, come whenever. I don't care. So I had to go and see that ortho, change it up, left my house 30 minutes earlier than I was intended to go see this patient, right? So there's scenarios. Would I do that for every patient? Absolutely not, right? But are there some scenarios where it seems like it's a more emergent situation because there was no one else to go? So,
Well, another question for you, since you're pay per visit, and I was pay per visit at one point in time,
yeah,
was it tempting to go and see the ortho? Because I mean, in my eyes, I sometimes see ortho as easy, right? Because
yeah,
they might not have a huge medical history. They might be rather simple. I'm like, oh, it's an ortho case. I'll take that. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I know we talk about fitting and stuff, but like the temptation when you're in a pay per visit, you're like, ortho? You're like, yeah, give me that. Give me
yeah.
that right away.
I'm
Like,
in and out, you know, they're easy, but it's a lot of, if it's an admission, it's still a lot of documentation
Mhm.
towards the end of your day, right? But yeah, I mean, orthos, anytime I'm like, oh, it's going to be an easy ortho, here's your
Nope.
last minute admission. It's like, no, it's a complete, like there's 700 medications. Their wound is bleeding and saturated. They're in 10 out of 10 pain. And I'm like calling the
Generalized pain
doctor.
everywhere.
As soon as you say it's
Everywhere.
easy, you're like, oh, I got this piece of cake. And next thing you're
Yeah.
like, oh my God, what did I
Yeah,
sign up
like I
for?
didn't document a thing. All I was doing was calling the doctors. I
Oh,
don't know
you're
what
going to
happened.
trigger.
Yeah.
What about how do you guys handle like like if you're gonna be out, right? If you know you're gonna be out for a couple days or a week or 2 weeks or whatever. I mean, I assume you guys all work with assistants or maybe not, but I mean, do you count on your back office to cover that, or is it just they just know not to give you any starts or evals for a couple of weeks and the assistants are going to cover your follow-ups, or like how do you handle like disruptions to your normal schedule?
Our responsibility is to find coverage for all of our patients that need it. And
Yourself?
so we reach out to our team and say, hey, this is what I have happening. Now, I have to say that unless it's an acute orthopedic patient, like 9 times out of 10, my patients are like, I don't want to see anyone for a week. Like I've got this, and I'm like, great, fantastic. Let's wait a week then. And we write a note.
And they only want to see you, Dan. They just want to
Yeah,
see
they only
you.
want to see
They don't
Dan.
want to
And
see
you're like,
Lisa. They don't want to see Brendan. They don't care how good we are. They want to see Dan because
I don't want to see anyone except for Dan. So you call the doctor and you say, hey, we're putting on hold for a week because the patient doesn't want another thing. And so that's how I've been doing it for a long time, because that's how many times it works out really nicely. Now, if it's an acute ortho and they need visits, that's a whole different story. We have to get that coverage. But we tell the schedulers, hey, listen, I'm going to be out for a week. Like, don't put anyone on my schedule. And, go from there.
and
I
to
will
piggyback, go, Lisa.
I was gonna say, I will sometimes, if I know I'm off for the week, or I'm lucky enough to be able to take a 2-week vacation in summer, that I will purposely plot like my reassessment visits that I know are due during that week, the week before, so I can get them done so they're not being covered by a different physical therapist.
Yeah.
I won't leave it blank because I know you're not supposed to leave a blank week per like Medicare guidelines, because they, oh, if you can skip a week, why do they need therapy? Right? If they can skip a week, why are you still doing it? But then we're having a missed visit or an order saying the patient refused because of such and such reasons. But I mostly work with a lot of assistants. So if my week is full with evals and research, they're being covered by the other therapists at our company, and they just have to be covered. If for some reason a research is missed, if it's like an O6, an add-on research, the nurse who's doing the O2, the OASIS research, will just add an eval for the following week, at least for us. But we have to get our visits covered, and the schedulers do it. I say, I'm off, I'm out, my tablet's gone, you guys got it.
Dan, I kind of do something similar to you where, we have a couple colleagues that work in the same area as us, right? So normally, we all know we take vacations and things like that, and we normally have our list of people. But then it's also a combination of what you said, Lisa, right? If I can discharge somebody early or get them outpatient, or I can do the re-eval early and it's just a visit, hey, they only want to be seen once next week. I'm trying to do all that prep before I go away. So it's really just a simple handoff. And most of the times, like we've had people where they were on vacation or they were actually transitioning to a new territory, so they were kind of like dwindling down their patients. So like, hey, I got a few stragglers, but I need to kind of really go on my new territory. Can you take these? And it's like a handoff. But I think the biggest thing it's just clear communication when it comes down to it, and just having clear communication, and every company does it slightly different, but it's just understanding, hey, they need to be seen this many times this week, and then the courtesy that I try to do is I'll either call and be like, hey, Dan, this is Betty, I see her twice a week. She likes Tuesdays and Thursdays morning, this is what we've been working on. I really think you should focus on this, but, feel free to add anything else, just a quick blurb, just give them an understanding of what's happening, what you expect. I know we can all read notes, but I think sometimes people are lazy and just try to get to the point, and sometimes then it can lead to other things that we don't want. So I think the biggest thing is just having clear, concise, short, brief conversations. Even if it's typed up, here's the 5-6 people I gave you for this week. Just ideals helps out a lot.
When
done
Dan said
that.
that he's got to find coverage, like Brendan or Lisa, do you guys ever have to kind of do that on your own, or?
So mine's like a mix. It's like, we have our schedulers that will help us out and they'll reach out to other therapists for us. But then, like I said, I also know the other therapists in my area that are available. And like, the other therapist that works with me, he's a go-getter just like me. So he doesn't mind ramping up and going a little bit higher in a week if he needs to, because we need to get paid a bonus pay too. So he'll take it if he needs to. He knows it's not forever. It's just that 1 week, and we do the same for each other. So
Yeah, I don't have to reach out and say, hey, you're going to be seeing these patients, but I do know which PTs would most likely be covering who are in my neighboring territories. And I've done the same thing with communication is a big thing of I've typed up an email. I'll get the schedulers to send me a list of who would be on my schedule for the week that I'm gone. I'll write a small little blurb about each of them, like, yeah, this person doesn't want to be seen in the mornings, or text this person, or I was going to research for this amount of time or whatever it may be, so they know going into it kind of what my plan was, since they're covering. And us PTs like to do things kind of the way we like to do them, and you have someone covering and they throw in a curveball to you, I'm like, what were you doing? But because they don't know your patient, right? So I think communication is a really big thing when in just every aspect, communicate, but letting people know what's coming up when you're gone,
so
and take
so
your PTO.
that being said, Lisa, I mean, the three of us, sorry, Haggerty, not a therapist, but if we were to make like our top 5 things for curveballs, I think the one thing that we put up there would be communication, right? I mean, what's other things I mean, the second thing I think about is just take a step
Yeah,
back,
bring it home for us. What do you got?
take a step back and like relax, just accepts, realize what's going on, everything else. I mean, that would be my second thing.
I mean, I think those are two big ones, that take a step back and relax, as well as just know that it's just could be one day and things are just going to go wrong. I know on these podcasts, we've been talking, being efficient and making up and calling people and replacing it. And I think it was great to Dan say that, all of that kind of went to crap today. And all of these strategies that we talk about, they didn't work for you today. And to know, like, hey, if you're listening to us and you're trying these strategies, it's okay if they're not
Right.
working one day, but tomorrow's another day.
Yeah,
So
I think it's super important to admit that it just says the fact that we do not have control over definite portions of our day. It's just the reality. We can do the very best we can with that, be as efficient as humanly possible. But when you get these curveballs, and the other one that I can think of right now is like you get to a patient's house, they're on the floor. You are calling 911, you are notifying the doctor, you're notifying the team before you realize it, and the EMTs come, you give your report, it's been an hour and 20 minutes. What do? It throws off everything, right? I mean, it happens. Thank God it's not often, but what do you do? And so that's where, I call my boss and I say, listen, I was in the house for much longer than typical. Can I add 30 minutes of administrative time towards my productivity? These are things that you can do. Again, if you have a good working relationship with your boss, because they know it doesn't happen all the time. They know you're not taking advantage of the system. You're just doing what you need to do so that you don't get home crazy late for things out of your control, So
Yeah.
But I think you just brought some great points there, right? We're human, right? Things happen, things are gonna happen, and again, you said the same thing, Lisa, and it's communication, right? Communicate that to others, communicate that to your surroundings. I mean, as flexible, as creative as we can be, sometimes things don't work out. But I think it depends on the situation. There are days where we could puzzle it together, piece it all together, and make it work, and make it Lisa, you were able to do that the one time. It wasn't perfect, but you still got it done.
Beautiful.
But I think at the end of the day, you just gotta go with it. You gotta go with it and ride it. See what
roll with
happens. Yeah, exactly.
On that note, we'll bring this one to a close. I think we can roll with it. Love that you guys gave a lot of good insights. We started out with a car crash. We ended up with roll with it. So
We're rolling out now.
Yeah, rolling out. Appreciate all the thoughts, and again, just always fun to be with you guys. So until next week when we start talking about befriending the back office, I want everyone to have a great week, and you guys to have a great day.
Thank you.
you know,
See you
Later.
guys.